everyone for being here today. Happy to have Dhairya Desai, or Desai rather, who is an undergraduate research student that is double majoring in chemistry and biology, and we'll be talking about finding research opportunities on campus today. He is a Newman Civic Fellow and a Levine Scholar, and is a researcher working on water purification through nanomaterial, reversing neurodegeneration, as well as a cancer with protein development. So a lot of good stuff going on. So Dhairya, I will hand it over to you. We will be monitoring the chat. If you have questions, would love for you to come off your camera, onto the screen and not hide yourself behind the camera. But if you have to, you have to. We totally understand. So thank you guys for being here.
Alrighty, I guess I could get started. So I don't have a specific presentation per se. Kind of it's just my story, and then I'm happy to answer questions as it goes. But I'll just get started with just saying how I got involved with research starting in college. So kind of going off of freshman year, I knew that I wanted to go into research. So I'm a chemistry and biology major going into the pre-medicine track. So research is a big role in medicine. Um, I knew that I wanted it to be a big role in my college career here. So my first goal was to kind of get acclimated to this college to my first semester, but still like see what research opportunities are out there. So kind of like what you guys are doing today, just going into different Zoom sessions, talking to professors. And that's how I kind of got first started with research, was just having these conversations about what research looks like as an undergraduate, what possibilities are out there and what opportunities are out there. And with that, I got connected with my Gen Chem 1 professor. He was doing research, and I started off volunteering my first end of my first semester. And then he was welcoming and he accepted me as a undergraduate research under him. So then starting off my second semester of freshman year, which was pretty early, I didn't think that would happen, but pretty early on, I was able to hop onto his research project, which so it was under Dr. Tom Schmidecki. And what we did was we looked at almost all my research was chemistry, so it doesn't have to be chemistry. It could be whatever you want to do, but it was more focused on chemistry where we looked at kind of creating compounds for like our OLED devices, so our phones or computers or TVs and stuff like that. And then I really liked that research for a while, so I stayed with him for my whole sophomore year as well. And that was great because that's where like I understood how research works. I started working on like my own mini project, so I actually got to start with like the hypothesis, thinking about like what the problem is, what I'm going to do, what my results were, and that was like the whole my sophomore year was like kind of doing my own mini project before I like move on to my actual project. And then luckily with his mentorship, I was able to get an REU position on campus with Dr. Jordan Polar. So this was my summer after sophomore year, where I did an REU position with Dr. Polar looking at water purification and how we're able to clean our water through chemical compounds for better what it's called for better quality. So kind of removing these forever chemicals off of them. So from there on, I stuck with him for another year. And that's where I also, so kind of going from not knowing how to do research, not knowing what research is, and then with my RU, and then like being fully immersed of like how to find the research question, how to find the research problem, where to find resources to help me think of new ideas. So then with Dr. Polar, I was able to do all of that. So I was able to actually make really good progress on my research. And with that, I was able to present at numerous conferences. So within the past year, just with that research project, I was able to present at the Southeastern Chemical Conference. I presented at the Snickers Conference, which is our state conference, and then as well as NCUR, which is a national conference. So really understanding what research was kind of projected me forward to being able to share my experience and share my findings with others. And I think that really comes in with like, I know like everyone, not everyone here, but a lot of people, they come to college and they see like seniors and juniors doing research and like, I want to be there. But you have to like really take a step back and understand like that path, it took them 3 years to get there. So it might take you 3 years as well. So you don't have to start off and get into research right away. Everyone has their own path. And that's just kind of how it works out. Some people might start right away, some people might it might take a while, but it's really finding that path and like understanding how to navigate through that path that helped me a lot. So after that, that my junior year doing research with Dr. Polar, I ended up, so at that time I was just a chemistry major, but then I took biochemistry my junior year. So then I really liked biochemistry. So I ended up picking up and changing my major into a chemistry with a biochem concentration. So then I wanted to go more into biochemical research, so either biology, because I've done a lot of chemistry research. So I wanted to go into either biological research or biochemical research. And luckily at that time, a new professor joined on campus, Dr. G, and I was able to join her lab over the summer. And then now I'm doing that for my senior year. And now I'm going to be working on my senior thesis, which is kind of like the second later half of what my introduction was, where I'm looking at how metals and proteins interact with each other and how we can make make proteins with different modifications to better affect cancer or to better produce or deliver drugs into a certain targeted area. So that's kind of my story with research. I guess for all 4 years, it was kind of condensed down, but I'm happy to answer questions as they come.
Daria, could you recommend anything for students that are kind of just wanting to get any experience into research? What would you recommend for them? Where to go or who to talk
Mhm.
to, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So for me, it was a lot of chemical research, but again, this it's very major dependent. So if you're interested in computer science research or if you're interested in biological or psychology research, I think the best bet is first go to your department's website. So the Charlotte department website, that you have a spot. A lot of departments that do are really invested in research will have a spot for like research. And there you could see all the professors that are doing research in a certain topic. And actually, I think the best bet to start off is going through those professors, like their own individual websites, maybe either reading a paper that they've published recently or just reading what their research topic is, what they're interested in, and if that interests you. And another great way to get involved with research or like see if research is for you is going to like these workshops. So a lot of like I know biological and chemistry departments, but a lot of us have um I guess seminars or like research showcases. So over there, they will all the faculty will get together. They'll talk a little bit about their research project, and here is a great way to actually start getting into research because a lot of these faculty are here to recruit new undergraduates because their undergraduates might have graduated or new grad students. And they might also know other opportunities. And what I did was after I kind of went onto the department's website and saw what research opportunities there were, and I made like a list of like 3 or 4 professors I wanted to do research with. And then don't feel afraid to email them. Don't email them being like, can I join your lab right away? But rather asking them if they want to have a conversation about their research, that you're interested in their research and you want to talk to them about their research.
So Daria, we have 3 questions in the chat. Um,
Mhm.
the first one, you may have touched on this, but I want to make sure the person asking it gets it answered.
Yeah.
How do we approach a professor about research? It feels like it's hard to approach them in regards to that. So you were given a great strategy. Are there any ways that you kind of prepped yourself for that?
Yeah. So I think whenever you're approaching a professor, it is a little nerve-wracking just because it's like, oh, I'm here not knowing anything about research, not knowing fully like how things play into place, or I don't know all the topics or the definitions of what you guys are researching. So it is like a little nerve-wracking being like the person who doesn't know what they're going to be talking about. Um, I think the best bet, kind of like what I said, is you want to try to know as much as you can before approaching them. So what I did was after I emailed a few professors that I was interested in, I started reading on their papers just so I know like, oh, this is what they've published recently, this is what they're interested in, and seeing if they sometimes also the professor's research website will also have like people. So you could instead of reaching out to the professor first, you could also reach out to a certain undergraduate student, or you could reach out to a certain grad student and talk to them. That will be a little bit less nerve-wracking and a little bit less like I guess hard in a sense to approach. And that way you can at least understand what research looks like for them in their under their PI, and then you'd be able to approach the professor, or they'd be able to introduce you to the professor themselves. So it is hard, but I think just being able to, or just taking a step back and understanding what you're going to get into and what is expected of you first is better to um, go in with when you talk to a professor. And then another way to approach them is, especially if your professor is a researcher or if they have a research lab, you could just go to their office hours and or email them just asking about what research looks like for them and then what they do as research. I think whenever it comes to like trying to find an opportunity, I think the best way is not to ask for the opportunity right away, rather learn more about it and talk with the professor more so they get to know you and why you're interested in it. And I think when it comes to like the end game where they have like five students come to ask them about researching, I think it turns to you getting accepted because you took the time to actually understand them and connect with them rather than just looking at them for an opportunity to do research.
Great point, Daria. We have a student that said they've tried to email the professors a lot, but they haven't heard anything. So Jessica and our team recommended them stopping by their offices to meet them face to face. Do you have any other recommendations aside from those?
Yeah, so if you email a bunch of professors, I will say it is definitely difficult. I had, when I first emailed them my freshman year, some professors didn't email me back for a month or 2 months, but you have to understand that they are professors that are doing research and also teaching, so they will be swarmed by your by emails, not just by you, by other students who also want research and also their students that are actually taking their class courses. Uh, One thing you could do is I'd say send a follow-up. So after you send your first email, give it like a week or a week and a half, and then send another follow-up just being like, hey, I've reached out previously. Wanted to know if this research opportunity is still available or if you're still happy to talk about it. And then if they still don't reach out, you could definitely do what was said. You could go to their office. Sometimes professors um have like an open door policy. So if their door is open, you could literally just walk in and start talking to them. Definitely not, but you could walk in and talk to them, or you could try to kind of, this is kind of going back to what I said before, but instead of reaching out to the professor firsthand because they might be difficult to reach, they might be going to conferences and stuff like that. Reach out to their team. So a lot of professors post their whole team on their website, and you could see other undergraduate students. And the good thing with a Charlotte email is if you type their name in, you could pull up their email right away. So you don't need to know their email right away, but you could definitely connect with the people working under the professor to see if they have a better way to get connected to the professor if the professor isn't emailing you back.
That's awesome, Daria. Thank you. Did you use, Daria, along the way, the Office of Undergraduate Research and build relationships with them as well? Or have you heard of success from other students?
Yeah, so I think OUR is a great office. I haven't personally used them for I guess their job opportunities. So I didn't mention this just because I haven't used them, but OUR is a great way to get connected into research. They have applications for fall terms, summer term, and spring term. I don't know exactly when they get opened up and then when they're due by, but definitely going on their website, and that way you're able to apply for a research job. So in this case, you are committed to work a certain amount of hours and you get paid for those hours. So there's two types of research, I guess, on campus. You have paid research and then you have research for credit. For all my years, I've been doing research for credit during the school year, and then for summer, I do paid research. And that's just with for the professors grants or like the REU I said. But I think OUR is a great opportunity and a great way to get started into research. I know they do have a great summer program, so I have applied to OUR summer program. I didn't end up using it or accepting it, but it's a great way to start research. And most of my friends have gotten started in research through their summer program, and then they're still connected with their professor, or they still do research with that same professor, even though they started that research project 2 or 3 years ago in the summer. So OUR is great. And another thing that they do have is a lot of funding for the conferences that you go to. So I've used OUR for, I guess, funding. So when I'm going to these conferences, they're not all free, they're not all paid for. So a lot of it does come by like finding ways that you can afford them. And I've been fortunate enough to have OUR and other sources of funding, but OUR will also fund some of your trips to these conferences to present your research. Um, and another way to get connected with OUR is through like uh, when they ever have like a career workshop or a career center like meetup, I think OUR is sometimes there. But another thing is that OUR hosts on-campus symposium. So they have an on-campus conference at the end of the year during the spring term where you can see all the research that undergraduates are doing through OUR and just individually as well.
Thank you, Daria. That was awesome. That helps because we love them too as the Career Center. We're very active in sending
Hmm.
students their way. They just fantastic.
Yeah.
Um, we have a student that indicated they tried looking at the School of Nursing website, and unfortunately, there aren't any professors offering research opportunities. You know, what should I do? And I think probably in this case, definitely look at OUR. Do you
Mhm.
have any other ideas, Daria?
Yeah. What you could do is you don't have to do research in your department. So what I've said in my past 4 years was just research I've done on campus. But during my after my freshman summer, I was connected with Atrium Health, so the hospital in Charlotte, but I joined their social strategy and impact team. And there, while it wasn't a full-on research project, I was on a research team where we did research on social impact and how certain like housing, food, accessibility to healthcare affects people going into health and how they get help and medication and stuff like that. So research does not always have to depend on your major or your department. You're able to do research. Some of my friends, even though they're pre-med students, they've done research with Habitat for Humanity, which is an affordable housing organization. So they're looking at how they're making an impact on the community. So research is just a way for you to expand your knowledge and gets develop these skills that you will use later in a nursing career or whatever career you choose. Um, I think a great thing is like now that I'm applying to medical school, they're not a lot of people aren't specifically interested in like what research you do. Like, so they are interested in the research you do, but they're more interested in the why you do it. So it doesn't have to be a research project in nursing. You could find other professors that are doing research that are still have that healthcare aspect to it. And you're able to always make your own research project with the professor if you stay with them long enough. So for me, joining my current professor this senior year, I was able to kind of talk with them on I don't want to do specifically this project, but I want to do this project and that project more aligned with what I was interested in and what I wanted to learn more about. So it does not have to be research within the nursing department. You could find research in the chemistry department. You could find research in the psychology department. But let's say you're interested in like how people get affected by like within healthcare you're interested in how like people are affected by brain injuries or stuff like that. We have biological professors that are doing brain research or doing neuroscience research. So while that might be something you will find easier in nursing, you could still find that in other departments. So don't, I guess, limit yourself to just your department. Feel free to venture out.
Great, great. Awesome. Thank you for that perspective. We had a student ask what factors make you stand out as someone to be selected for a research project. Is it GPA? And Jessica on our team provided this response, but certainly Daria would love your feedback too. Jessica said, you know, make sure you show passion, genuine interest in the research topic, strong letters of recommendation, critical thinking and problem solving skills, proactivity and initiative. Um, any other thoughts there?
Yeah. So, a lot of so for my research opportunities thus far, none of my professors have asked me for a certain transcript. While they're able to see your GPA, they haven't asked me like, have you gotten all A's in your classes? Have you gotten B's and A's in your classes. So none of them asked me about GPA, but they were more interested in kind of like what Jessica said, my actual interest for their team and the research topic I'm in, and just me being myself, me being interested in learning, me asking a lot of questions when they were presenting. Like a lot of professors, what they'll do is once you email them and they get connected with you, they'll give you a rundown of their whole research lab, what they're interested in, everything. So a lot of that came with me asking questions. So when they ask, do you have any questions? Try to think of some questions that you may have. They don't have to be the best questions. You could just ask them, can you re-explain this? But that still shows interest that you're wanting to learn more about their project and wanting to really interact with them. I think that stands out way more than a number on your transcript. Um, Another thing is letters of rec. So for first years and second years, it's kind of hard to develop strong letters of rec. And research is a little bit harder to get into your first semester, but that shouldn't stop you from, you could use letters of rec from your high school because it's still your first year. But a lot of my professors, this, I guess letters of rec apply to like when you're doing research opportunities off campus or through OUR where they might ask you for a letter of rec. Um, but if you're just trying to connect with a professor one-on-one, they won't specifically ask you for a letter of rec, but what they will do is ask you for what professors you're taking classes with, and they'll just have an informal conversation, be like, do you know this student? How are they doing in class? Are they polite? Are they kind? Are they hardworking? So I guess it's not a full letter of rec, but try to make your impact on all the professors you've had thus far and that you will have throughout Charlotte. Don't
अच्छा your
like
net is off अच्छा
ये मैं अरे नेट ऑफ नहीं था मैं साइड में रखा था फोन तो
अच्छा अच्छा
Make sure everyone's on mute, please. We have another question. The student's case is, I'm planning on doing a thesis starting next term. The professor agreed to be my advisor and on my committee. I want to ask the professor about being a research assistant, since I'll be working on the professor's research further. Can you suggest how I should go about that?
Yeah, so since you're already connected with a professor, I think this gives you a huge advantage for asking about a research assistant position. I think you should definitely not, you could try emailing them, but maybe an in-person conversation could be better just because that way you could express your feelings and I feel like in-person conversations are always easier to get out and you get better results than you do in email form. Um, I haven't specifically ran into this issue per se or like had this open for me. Um, what you could do is see if you're looking for like a research assistant to see if they have funding, you could ask if they're able to support you financially or if they're able to support you with funding or to see if you could take it for credit. So for me, all my research has been through credit, and that does give you a GPA boost. So kind of going back to the first question with GPA, research is another way you could boost your GPA for other possible opportunities you have after college. Um, but I think the best way to go about it is trying to sit down and have a conversation with them when you are talking about what you're going to be doing in the future. So when you reconnect with them about your thesis project and when you're like kind of finalizing what's going to look like for you in the next term, ask them if they have a position open or if you could actually join their team officially. And that way you could get into, I guess, that research assistant. That helps.
That's
Give me
awesome.
1 second.
Okay.
There we go. I just had to charge my computer.
No problem. Daria, can you be part of multiple research projects at the same time? Ask a question by a student.
Yeah, so being part of multiple research opportunities at the same time is difficult. I have done that before. Um, what I would say is it's kind of you also want to leverage it where you're not tiring and burning yourself out, especially with research. You never know how long you're going to be in there. So for me, while I plan to only be in there 5 hours, if I have a reaction running that will be an additional 1 hour or 2 hours more, I can't just go home saying it's 5 p.m. I'm going home. I have to make plans and stay another 2 hours. So when you're doing multiple research opportunities, you will have these issues where or not these issues, but these instances where you might have to dedicate more time to one research project than you thought you would, and then that cuts time from like your free time or your studying time or your homework time. So having multiple opportunities isn't terrible. It just comes with the role of, will I be able to manage my time and how do I manage my time? And another thing I would say is make sure your professors are fine with you having multiple research opportunities. So if you connect with one professor first, and then another professor also says yes to you. So now you have two professors that have said yes, kind of like taking a job, kind of like taking an internship. You don't want to say yes to both if it's going to cost you, if once they find out, they're both going to say no to you afterwards. So I would say first ask the professors, like, say, I have these two opportunities. I'm really interested in yours, but I also want to do theirs. Would it be okay if I do both at the same time? If both professors say yes, then definitely go ahead if you think you're able to do it. But if one says no, then that comes to a point where you have to decide which one to do, because most professors will like you to solely focus on them. Because if you're doing two research opportunities there, you're splitting your time up for, let's say you allot 10 hours of research a week, you're splitting your time up 5 and 5, and now they're not getting a full dedicated student that could do research when another student can dedicate all 10 hours to their team. So it really comes with at the end of the day, it's going to be the professor's decision where if they're okay with you doing multiple research opportunities.
Daria, we have one question about the hour, which I can answer. The student walks by our hour all the time. The door's always locked, so haven't been able to ask questions. We recommend you going to their website. They actually do have a phone number you can call, as well as you can make an appointment. I think they do offer occasionally or maybe once a week drop-in hours. So just check that website a little bit more closely around how you can reach them alternatively, because a lot of times they might be on campus doing different things with different departments and meetings with different professors. So they're a bit mobile as well. Um, a question asked, how do you go about getting letters of recommendations? Like how have you done it, Daria?
Yeah, so for me, it's been throughout my college career or even like high school, I would not go off being like, you're gonna always have professors that you will like and that you won't like.
Mhm.
So know the professors you like and try to make the best connection you can with the professors you like and you think are gonna be the best for letters of rec. So kind of starting off in like right now, if you're in your first semester or just deciding what professors you're thinking about, try to start building their connections. So go to their office hours, stay behind class, talk to them for a little bit, and just getting to know them as a person, and not just always, you don't always have to have a question about what they taught. You don't have to always have a question about the topics you're learning in class, but just how are you doing? What do you like and stuff like that, I think is the best way to start building these connections with professors. So for me, it's been using this connection, and whenever I see them on campus saying hi, how are you doing, goes a long way. So now when I'm going to ask for, like when I was going to ask for medical recommendations, it was kind of like for professors that I've had like 3 or 4 years ago. First, it was like a hello, how are you doing? So I send this as a conversation, but like hello, how are you doing? I enjoyed your class, and I wanted to ask if you would be able to write a strong letter of rec for me. Um, and then from there on, if they say yes, then provide them with anything that you think would allow them to write you a strong letter of rec. But it's kind of being proactive on the front end right now rather than being retroactive. So you want to be proactive, build connections with professors, and you never know. Some professors might end up being the best letters of rec, even though you think that you're not doing the best in their class. So it does not have to be a class you got an A in. It could be a class that you got a C in. But if the professor saw you doing hard work, really putting in the effort, they're gonna write you a better letter of rec than a professor that didn't even see you in class, but you still got an A in. So it's really being proactive and building these connections with your professors right now. So when it comes to asking them for letters of rec, it's a simple email or a simple conversation being like, I really enjoyed your class. You know me. Like they know you. So they would be more than happy to letter of rec. And then another thing I would say is also be more proactive on your letters of rec. So if you know you're applying to a scholarship or a fellowship or a research opportunity that has the application due like 3 months from now, go ahead and send out that email or try to talk to that professor right now about if they would be able to write you a letter of rec. So they could write that on their schedule, on their calendar, like I have to write this student a letter of rec, rather than you asking them 2 weeks before it's due, being like, hey, I really need this. Can you write a letter right now? because most of the times they'll say no if it's like a 2 week or 1 week turnaround time, even though if they might love you as a student or they might have enjoyed having you as a student, if it's too short of a time, they're not gonna be able to write you a strong letter.
So true, Daria. A student asked, how does research boost your GPA? And Jessica on our team replied, research boosts your experience and skills. You can include it in your elevator pitch when you're out networking with professionals, and it also helps you get into graduate school. You pretty well agree with that?
Yeah, of course. So, research gives you a lot of skills that will boost everything of your resume. So, for me, most of my resume, the meat of my resume is research project, research project, research project. And especially with interviews in graduate schools, they will ask you like why you were interested in that, what you did, and what you learned from it. So, a lot of my like secondary essays for med schools have been, tell me about a time you had an issue in your research lab. How did you combat that? How you use creative thinking in research. Especially with like medicine, it's kind of like you're going to use creative thinking at when you actually become a doctor. Not all cases are presented the same. So they ask like, how did research build that creative thinking up? So research is a great way to build your skills. You learn writing skills, technical skills, reading papers, and actually grabbing the critical information from a certain paper. And then when it comes to GPA, in a sense, it really depends on how what research you do. So for me, it was research for credit. So for that, the way that looks is for every credit you take, it's equivalent to about 3 hours of research in lab, and then anything else the professor might also have. So for me, a lot of my credits have been 3 hours of dedicated research time in lab, as well as a 1 hour group meeting every week. So it was a total of 4 hours per week that I had to spend for one credit. And the way it boosts your GPA is research. I would say it's an easy A, but it is definitely one of those things where you show up, you do great work, and the professor notices that, and then you'll get an A in that thing, in that I guess that credit that you take for research. So for me, a lot of it has been in the very beginning, once I got connected with a professor, got my research opportunity, we put a contract up in the very beginning where it said, by the end of the semester, I'm supposed to write a research summary of what everything I've done thus far, present once at group meeting, and show up for 3 hours a week. And if all of those check boxes are hit, then the professor will give you an A. So for me, it's been a pretty easy route in just making sure you meet those expectations the professor sets for you in the very beginning. So research that will give you a credit boost because there you get an A for research that you will also boost your resume, but now also boost your GPA because you got an A in that credit. And then
Sure.
you're also able to take credits. So I've taken the whole range. I've taken research for one credit, research for two credits, research for three credits. And it's just multiplying the amount of credits you take by the 3 hours. So that's how much time that's how much time I've allotted in all my opportunities. So I make sure I hit the 9 hours of research every week now. I'm taking it for 3 credits, but yeah,
Thank you. So this
of
student
course.
basically was asking, should I go to office hours of a professor whose research I'm interested in but have not had any contact? And if so, how do I find out their office hours? Jessica indicated in finding the office hours, of course, they're posted on their door, and they could also ask the office manager of that area or that section, hey, how do I get in contact with this professor? You find that that's been successful as well?
Yeah, so for me, it's been not specifically going for their office hours. So not all professors will have office hours. A lot of them have like by appointment office hours. But kind of like what Jessica said in the very beginning is if you haven't been able to set that contact up, go to their office. So I've multiple times just walked by their office, see if they have any sign up or anything, or just knock on their door, be like, and then introduce yourself. So you never know when the professor will be in there. So if you do end up going to the door, make sure you're prepared to talk to them. You never know how long that your conversation might end up being. Because that happened to me once where I knocked on a professor's door. I had a quick question, but we ended up talking for 30 minutes. So make sure you do have time to allocate to talking to them for at least a little bit, rather than just being like a hi, my name is Daria, and then head out just to get that contact up. But I think the best bet is if you haven't been able to get contact with them, first definitely go email them. If you haven't emailed them, then don't go to their office right away. email them first and then go to their office if they haven't reached out to you. Um, and then if the office is still closed or if you can't reach them through their office, try to ask around, like Jessica said, go to their neighboring professor's office, see where they are, or if they have a better way to contact them. Or again, like I've been saying, go reach out to the research team because they will always be connected to their professor because that is their PI. So they might be able to connect you easier or in a faster way as well.
Could you talk about a typical day in the lab or on site? Is it mostly
Yeah,
collaboration with other people, or is it independent work or a hybrid?
yeah, of course. So I've had the whole range, so kind of, I didn't get fully into it, but I could get into it now. So starting off my freshman year, it was in the chemistry department. A lot of my research was hands-on, kind of like if you take in Gen Chem 1, Gen Chem 2, or any like chemistry or bio research, it was wet lab research where we were dealing with compounds, waiting, conducting reactions, writing them up, getting their results. For freshman to sophomore year, I was working with a grad student, so I was working under their project. So I didn't have specifically my own project, but I was helping them throughout. So whenever they would be in lab, I would also be in lab. So kind of understanding why they're researching it, knowing what they're doing, and kind of just knowing all the background around that was my like first 2 years of research where I kind of follow and shadow the grad student and do a little bit of research here and there. Um, and that's also where I did a lot of reading on understanding the topics because the research I got into freshman year was I guess, senior level research, as in like coursework. You don't take that course that the professor's research focuses on until senior year. So for me, it was a lot of reading in my own time, in my free time, to understand and be able to actually have these conversations and help out the grad students and the professors for their issues that might have arise. For my junior year summer, research was much different. I was given a project that I focused on. So there, I started off first with working with the professor, just knowing how to use the equipment, what to do, what safety measures there were. And after that, I was on my own. I would come into lab at my own time. Again, this approved by the professor, but I would come into lab on my own time, start with my, like, make a list of what I wanted to do, and then do those tasks at on campus with the stuff. So again, this was all chemistry research. So it's has been kind of the same. Like a day in the lab would be coming in, weighing my compounds, running a reaction, and then seeing if it worked out, whether it be like a 1 day, 2 day, or 3 day reaction. And then for my other research, the off-campus one, kind of what I did in the summer, um, and then another one that I had beforehand, it was more data analytical. So what I did over there, so that's why where research really depends. For me, that was getting the data from another source and then running tests on them, so statistical tests on them to seeing what results we get, and then writing them up. Because for that one, we were writing a paper, so it was writing them up after I run the test and then sending that off to my PI. So research is really different, and it really depends on where you join the team and what your project is. If it's wet lab, a lot of your day is going to look like kind of the same thing over and over again, where you're assigned with the task, you start off with it, get the results, see if it worked well. If it didn't work well, try to make points of what went wrong and fix them in the next run. For research that is not wet lab, a lot of it is reading up on the topic. So freshman year and sophomore year was a lot of reading and getting understanding with research and what the topic was at hand. And that's what kind of your entry into a research team looks like is kind of like the training aspect of it. Whenever you join a job, you get like a 1 week of training. So kind of the same thing. You have a certain hour or a certain amount of training that you do before the professor will trust you and the grad student trusts you to do their own project by themselves. So that's kind of like how research looks like, I guess, day to day for me.
Daria, when you were doing your application for the hour summer opportunity, the OUR,
Mhm. Yes.
did you have anyone review your application just to make sure it was on point, or do you have a recommendation for that?
Yeah. So for me, I got other friends who were applying, so I used my friends as a first off, like, does this flow well? Does this read well? Does it make sense? But then after that, I use my advisors. So everyone has a department or a major advisor. So I use my advisor. I've connected with them pretty well. So that was my point person. I asked them, does this flow well? Does this make sense? And if I remember correctly, it was a lot of what research or what person do you want to do research with, and then why do you want to do that research project? So for me, it was also taking a step back and actually understanding what the research was, reading on the research, and then drawing that connection, like this is why I want to do it. And with the advisor, I was able to actually like drill down and then make that like 1 or 2 sentence liner, as in this is what my interests are, and this is why this research opportunity is the best for me. And I think just reaching out to your resources, like even a professor, is a great way to get your written assignments or any assignments that you might have for an application approved. The Career Center is also another way. So for resumes, I don't think OUR asks for resumes, but other applications do ask for resumes. So for me, the Career Center was a great way to get my resume reviewed, making sure it fit within the application I was doing, if it fit with their alignments, with their requirements, if there's any wordings that I could change. So for me, that was like those two avenues, was advisors and Career Center.
And one last question. Do you recommend wet lab or clinical research as a student's first research experience?
Yeah, so this is really dependent again on your interests. Clinical research is harder to get into as an undergraduate student. I would just say that because especially with like clinical research has to be within, sometimes connected with the hospital or connected with a professor who's connected to a doctor. So that's sometimes harder to get into because there's more requirements and there's more safety concerns. Um, but it really depends on you. I really wanted to get into wet lab research just because I like that. So I did wet lab research as my first experience. If you like clinical research, it might be harder to get into, but if that's what you want to go into, I would say go for that rather than a wet lab research because it's better for you to take more time to get into the research you like rather than getting into a research you don't like and then having to deal with it for however long you commit to that research project. Because sometimes a professor might want 10 hours of commitment for a whole year. And if you sign up to that, you can't, it would be a bad look to say no to it right afterwards. So I'd say know what you want to do first, and then even though if it might take a month more than it would have to get into wet lab research, I think that's worth that month wait to get into a research opportunity that you really want to get into, rather than dealing with like your second choice. But yeah,
Daria, we cannot thank you enough. This has been incredible. To,
of
to
course,
to have someone that, number one, you started pretty early in your educational career at UNCC doing this, but also your understanding of the ins and the outs and the resources to lean into, the conversations to have, the how and the why. It's been phenomenal. So thank you so much for being here with us today. And
of course,
gosh, thank you all you students that joined as well. We really hope this has been very effective and helpful to you as you navigate this process. And I think at this juncture, we're good because we're a little bit over time and we realize people have to get to class, probably you too, Daria. But thank you all for being here. Hope you have a great, great Tuesday. And please join any other events we're offering this week related to healthcare science and research.
Thanks, Daria.
of course.
Thanks everyone for attending. Bye.
Bye.